Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma, and this is the Dharma Time Hour, and as always, I was about to introduce myself as the Dope Doctor. I am the Dharma Guy, and he is the Dope Doctor. Together, we make up Dope and Dharma. Welcome.
Yo.
How's everybody? How are you doing today, man?
I don't know. You just got a lot louder all of a sudden in my ear.
I'm
doing
it's showtime, man, so I got to perform, right? You know, I got to turn it up a notch, I guess. I don't know.
You don't like this... Rich is not liking my Strixon.
I don't even know what that is. What it is. I'm assuming it's a golf thing.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I would be right.
Hey, what's up, Richard? What's up, Lori? It was free hat, Richard.
I love me some free hats.
It's one of my favorite F words.
Yeah. Well, I still have the Corbin Forrester number 7 hat that I wear a lot as well, and then Dixon Golf. Or no, not Dixon Golf. Oh my gosh, Dialed In Sports. Dialed In Golf or whatever from our friend Ian.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I got an interesting topic today, man. Well, first of all, do we want to talk about the golf tournament and stuff now, since we're on the golf subject? Because you posted
11th.
something. Yeah, you posted something yesterday, right?
April 11th, man. It's coming up. So if you want to golf, Richard, if you want to come down, golf with us April 11th, feel free to do so. Anybody want to sponsor, want to be a whole sponsor, you want to come play, you want to volunteer, hit me up. You know how to hit me up. You know, if you don't, just write some messages on here. And, you can find us everywhere, it seems like. So
yeah, we're all over the place at this point.
So definitely would like to have some good volunteers and definitely want some good players. I don't know, it should be exciting, man.
Yeah.
All the same friends, celebrities will be there. So if you want to come because you want to rub elbows with Daryl Strawberry, then he knows that people do that, so that's fine. Curtis Laskanik, what do you call it? Man, I'm losing it right now.
And then we have the wakeboarder's going to be there. I don't remember his name.
Well, not a wakeboard. He's a surfer.
Is he a surfer? I don't know. I'm
I'm
obviously not in that world, so it's hard for me to distinguish between the two. Apparently, I'll stay in my lane.
About that, man. I speaking of wakeboarding, I'm going to go right to snowboarding. We had a good send off. My man didn't make it, but he did all right, man. Five Olympics though. Can you imagine being in 5 Olympics?
Oh, you talking about Shaun White?
Yeah, 5 Olympics.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah,
of course
I didn't watch any of them. I don't really get fired up about the Winter Olympics. I don't know why. I don't.
There's certain sports. First of all, I don't know why I watched the curling thing or whatever the hell that.
You watched? Wait. You watched the curling?
I can't help it. It's
that's because they look like us.
Mindless.
They look like regular dudes who just got off the couch and was like, "All right, let's go do this."
No, I saw you on the Super Bowl. I saw you on the podium getting your trophy. So they don't all look like us. They look like me. They don't look like you. I saw you at the Super Bowl.
God.
But that was, man. I love the half pipe though. I love that.
Sure.
It's like an X Games thing, but an Olympics. So I mean,
yeah, I can see that.
And I love any fast skiing down there. I mean, I love skiing, so
right.
See that I can't ski anymore, but I love watching it. But that's it, pretty much. I mean, that walking on skis, cross country skis. I don't even want to watch you run cross country, much less ski cross country.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that existed in there.
But I mean, that's the time you got to be a nationalist, So I believe in it, like USA,
right.
USA.
Sure.
I just like it.
Sure.
Even though we're in China.
All right. Well, so
what are we talking about?
If anybody wants to join us for the golf tournament or participate, they can go to Now Golf Tournament. Jesus, I can't speak today either. NowGolfTournament.org. So once again, go to NowGolfTournament.org and you can read all about it. You can see where it's at. You can join up. You can sponsor all those fun things. So, So today's topic, right? I think it's interesting because when I said what the topic was a couple days ago, I was actually on the phone with my mother and it came to me. She reached out to me later on the next day and had a different interpretation of what I was intending. So it's going to be interesting to see what your immediate interpretation is. Matter of fact, so the topic itself, I'm calling it justifications, right? Justifications. So when I say that, what immediately comes to your head? What do you think the direction we're going to go in? Like, what's your immediate response just by hearing the title?
I start thinking about excuses. I start thinking about how we validate our behavior, how we make excuses for our behavior, not take responsibility. That's what I might first think.
Okay, so that's kind of that's pretty much the track that I was going to go down.
Okay.
And so a quick story that like what made me think of it, right? Because throughout the week, obviously, I think I'm looking for inspiration, things to talk about, things that I think that are, on everybody's mind, things that I think can help people. And I see it a lot with my kids. I see it in the media. I see it with friends. I see it everywhere. But the specific moment that it kind of like hit me, it was a couple days ago. I was driving my daughter to school. We got in the truck and we're pulling out. And as we're going, I have a rule, and I've always had this rule in my truck for the kids, and for myself as well, but mainly for the kids. If the truck's moving forward, seatbelts. Like, I'm not even pulling forward unless you have seatbelts on. It's been a rule since they were children, and, they always remember it. So we were pulling out, and my daughter thought that was the opportune time to put her sweatshirt on. And so as she was putting her sweatshirt on, I had to hit the brakes. And when I hit the brakes, she flew forward a little bit. And, she didn't get hurt or anything, but it scared the hell out of her, right? It startled her. She's, oh, my gosh. And she looked at me with this startled look on her face. And my only response to her when I looked over her, I was like, that wouldn't have happened if you had your seatbelt on. Like that, And this is where the show topic idea came from. She looked back at me, and her only response was, well, I was trying to put my sweatshirt on. I was like, that has nothing to do with the fact that if you had your seatbelt on, that wouldn't have happened, right? And so that was the situation that made me think of it, and that is, for whatever reason, lately what I've been seeing a lot, and it's not just children, mind you, it's adults as well. We seem to have this idea that the story matters more than the outcome, right? We have the story that we tell ourselves. We have this justification, if you will, or as you said at the top of the show, excuse, and why that might be valid in our mind. It seems that like it gets lost somewhere that doesn't negate the consequences. No matter what your story is, it doesn't negate any real world consequences that are potentially going to come from it, right? And so, like, for instance, in the seatbelt situation. Okay, in her mind, she wanted to put the jacket on. I get it. But physics, it didn't care what her reasons were. The car came to a stop. She went forward. It's not like the law of gravity and physics said, "Oh, wait a minute, we can't function today." She's putting her jacket. No, it's still going to happen. And had she have hit her face and really got messed up or whatever, the fact that she was putting her jacket on wouldn't have removed all of that. It still would have happened, right? And so that's why I say what you should have done is put it on before you walked out the door, or put it on before the truck was moving. Like, the second that happened, it should have been an indication to you, hey, now's the time I need to make sure I'm fastened in correctly, right? And so for me, I think I see a lot of that, right? Right. And there seems to be this thought process, because I get it in my home a lot, and I'm pretty sure you do as well. I get told sometimes by my wife even, or other people around, when a situation occurs, that my response is oftentimes, it's considered harsh, right? And the reason why it's called harsh, like for instance, in that situation, I said, hey, that wouldn't have happened had your seatbelt been on. And that's interpreted as a harsh response. And I don't feel that it's harsh. I feel I'm just bringing some fact or some awareness to the situation. I'm the messenger, if you will. I didn't create the circumstance. I just acknowledged, hey, the fact of the matter is, this wouldn't have happened had this happened prior to. But
it's also a no shit statement, right?
You would think so. Yeah, you would think so. And so, I don't know. I just see that a lot right now. I see a lot of people making decisions. And let me preface all this by saying it's okay, right? And what I mean by that is we make bad decisions. We've all done it. I've made bad decisions in my life. I know you've made them. We've all made them. If you're listening to this or watching this right now, you've made them too. And that's okay. We're not saying be perfect.
I plan to make a few more today.
Exactly. The difference, the only thing that I'm trying to get out there is acknowledge it, right? Be aware, hey, you know what? I could have made a better decision there. That's it. Don't try to justify, your decision making when it was clearly a bad decision. Own the bad decision. Acknowledge that I made a bad decision, and sometimes you can correct it. Like sometimes you can correct the train of thought that got you there. Other times, maybe the train of thought really wasn't bad. You just called it wrong. That happens as well. That's one of the reasons why I have no regrets tattooed on me. And everybody says, "Oh, you don't regret anything." That doesn't mean everything went perfect in my life. That just means I can't regret the outcome because my decision making was sound. Meaning, the way I arrived at whatever decision I made, I weighed things out and I picked what I felt to be the logical right decision. That doesn't mean it always ended up the way I wanted it to, or ended up well. Sometimes it ended up horribly. But I can't regret that because I don't regret my decision making process. But I can acknowledge, hey, that wasn't a good decision. That was pretty stupid. I didn't think that went through clearly. But we don't seem to have that these days. It seems like whenever something takes place, there's always a story. And we focus so much on the story that it seems to make the outcome not matter. And then we walk around with this idea that the world now needs to adapt to whatever story I'm telling, as opposed to me adapt to whatever consequence the world has given me. Does that make sense? Do you see that a lot? Do you see where I'm going with this?
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to put it a little bit different way.
Sure. Well, that's why we're dope and Dharma.
Right. And because I think, as far as everybody's story, I think it's at least it's valid to that person. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it matters to you. Sure.
And they're not in a position at that moment. None of us are for a teaching moment.
Right.
That's not what we're asking for. It's like unsolicited advice when you give me a no shit statement, right? However, this is how we have to kind of view it. Where you're coming from is important, and it's important to you, and it's who you are, and all that. But the destination you end up at is usually where the discussion is happening. It's not where you're coming from. It's the destination you ended up at. So let's say you're coming from home, but then you broke into my home. Well, you can't go to the judge and they go, yeah, but I came from my home. Yeah, that's great that you came from your home. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about that you ended up in Louis' home. That's the conversation we're having right now. And I think that's, if we make it as simple as that,
sure,
it can make more sense. Because I don't care whether you walked to my house. I don't care if you drove to my house. I don't care if you drove a Lamborghini. I don't care if you used whatever you did to get to my house. The point is that we're not talking about your journey. We're not talking about your stops along the way. We're not talking about how comfortable your bed is. We're not talking about how many people live at your house. We're not even talking about how different your house is than my house. Right. We're only talking about the destination you ended up at. And let's talk about, hey, you don't belong here, or this is not a good decision. And so we have to find a way from the other side, though, to kind of at least let the person know, I hear you. I hear that you're talking about how rough it was to get here, and I hear how you're talking about where you come from. What do I need to do to help you understand, though, that none of that is relevant to your destination? What do I need to do? And so that's, I think the trick, the onus is going to be on us as the person listening, because we're all getting it, right? We're all hearing someone, spew out their reasons for their behavior, or the reasons for, offending you, or whatever it is. Well, then, all right. So let me explain. Let me listen to you. You're heard. I hear you. Okay. I think that's what at least that's my focus on how to get along better with people in the world is practice my listening, because I can't force them to understand my point of view. So I just have to listen to them, and hopefully in my active listening, we can just end that conversation, because it's typically not going to go anywhere.
No, it's not. And I think from the teacher's perspective, right, the one who did the no shit statement, I agree with you that the onus on that person at that moment, depending on what your role is, right? Whatever your role is in that moment, the onus is on you to understand that your message might not be received at that moment, right? However, the main focus of my thought process today was, coming from the spiritual place. One of the things that drew me so much to the Buddhist philosophy was the onus was on us, right? The onus is on me. I can only change my relationship to suffering, regardless of who is around. It's my reaction, it's my perspective, and things of that nature. So I'm speaking right now to the person who's on the receiving end of the no shit statement, right? And I'm trying to get them to understand is it's not the world's job to cater to you. Some might, some very well may, and some might not. But you can't base your learning or your ability to absorb new information based upon how they give it. Should they all give it in a nice place? Absolutely. Are they? No. And at the end of the day, who suffers the most from not learning that lesson? You. It's only going to help you, right? And so now this is a harsh statement, right? And I don't intend for it to be harsh, but it does come off harsh. When people are talking, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. No, I don't, right? Like, to the random everyday person, I don't have to, adjust the way I'm speaking to you. I'm not the one who made the mistake. I'm not the one who's trying to learn the lesson. My thought process, if I'm trying to be disconnected from that person, I'm not your husband. I'm not your therapist. I don't have to do all those things. Should I? Absolutely. But you got to understand that there's people in this world who that's not their role in your life, and they're not going to adjust to that. They're moving on with their own day. Now, you could choose to not listen to anybody unless they speak the way you want them to speak. Good luck. Good luck. Hopefully that works for you. But more often than not, you're going to have to learn some lessons in life that aren't necessarily going to be delivered in the way that you would like for them to be delivered. And it's up to you whether you choose to listen to it or not. My mom taught me, I think Richard put it up there earlier, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I try to teach my kids that as well, right? I don't necessarily use those exact words, but too many times, my little one, my 10-year-old will do something completely overboard as a reaction to something his sister does. And when I get on to him about his reaction, because he took it to a level it didn't need to go to, his response is always, well, she did this. I was like, it doesn't matter what she did. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your behavior, and you took it to a level it didn't need to go. Yeah, she was wrong, but you were also wrong because you lost your ability to maintain the moral high ground, right? The moment you dipped down and completely handled it, it negated anything that she did that was wrong, because now you're now responsible for your behavior, right? And it makes me think back to my mother when she was working in the jail system. Because we were talking about this, and I asked her, I was like, how many people did you talk to when you were working with inmates? How many of those inmates came to you and tried to justify their behavior based upon the area they lived in or the people that they were raised with? And she's like, every single one of them. I was like, exactly. Yep. It doesn't matter, how bad your parents were. It doesn't matter how crappy of a area you grew up in. It doesn't matter the difficulties or the traumas that you faced in life. None of that justifies you carjacking somebody. Period. Yeah, you had a rough life, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe your parents were crappy. I'm so sorry. But you're going to have to learn how to adjust to that. You're going to have to learn how to overcome that. And you can't do it at other people's expense. Because if you do, there's going to be consequences. And the judges and the lawyers and the legal system or life, however you want to define it, doesn't care. And I think we have to wrap our heads around that, right? It sounds harsh, but I don't personally see it as harsh. I just see it as cause and effect. Whenever there's an action, there's a reaction. Go ahead.
No, I think that, Trinity, I think the only reason it sounds harsh is because for some reason my fellow counselors and therapists in the world have turned everything around to a victim type way. We have swung so far the other direction. The pendulum has swung really far. Because what you're saying is valid and it's true. But again, the person's pain and their journey and where they come from is also valid.
Yeah, I agree.
You have to understand that's important. And I like what you said. That's important to you because that's how you can then work on what you need to work on so you don't end up in those same destinations. But as for the real victim, me, that you ended up in my house, right? That's your story means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Or your story means something to you so that you can prevent yourself from constantly getting in those situations again and again and again.
Yeah.
A real good example of that is we saw the doping thing here in the Olympics, right? There was a person that somehow got excused after serving some time for breaking the anti-doping, right, from another country. But it was a heart medication, right? But they broke the anti-doping, but it was a heart medication. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I think that might have played a role in it. And then, of course, we had another athlete, a United States athlete, then make a comment. We've talked about this athlete. They got in trouble because she had tested positive for marijuana, and then she had said because her family member had died, blah blah blah.
Right.
And so, but she made it a race issue instead of a substance issue.
Right.
Look, I don't know what the issue is, but regardless whether that person gets excused and you don't get excused, if I broke the rule, that's whatever happens to me.
Exactly.
That's irrelevant, right? Not everyone that breaks the rule that I break is going to get the same consequence I get. We know that, right? This is real world, right?
Exactly.
There's people that get away with stuff much worse than you, and by the way, I got away with a lot of stuff that a lot of you didn't get away with. I get that. But you can't get mad at my privilege, because then I'm going to look at your privilege. And everyone, Trinity, everyone has privilege and everyone has detriment. Everyone.
Well, the other thing that I hear a lot is that's not fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We all have an unfairness that happens in our direction and a fairness that happens towards the other direction. Right? We all suffer that. We only seem to focus on when it doesn't work in our favor. And I get that, because we're selfish animals. So we look at everything from the world lens of us. But just understand, it's because you're selfish. I'm selfish. I try not to be. I work hard not to be. But naturally, as animals, we're self-preserving animals. It's survival of us first. If you behave differently than that, that's outside the rule. That's not the norm, right? Because if you're drowning, trust me, you're going to want to instinctually save yourself first. And if you don't think I'm correct on this, watch every video where there's a gunshot and everybody's running wild, trampling people.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And maybe one person is stopping to help somebody that fell down, but the rest are running rampant. What does that tell you? We're selfish first, naturally, and it's okay. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm just simply saying that naturally, as animals, we're selfish first. So when we do wrong, or someone is bothered by our behavior or something we did, our instinct is to tell the story. Let me tell you where I came from. Let me tell you why I did it. Let me give you some reasoning behind it. I get it. But I didn't like it. And so let's talk about the end result.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think the maturity on us that we're talking about today is simply when you catch yourself telling a story and the other person is not getting it, we don't need to ramp up the energy. We don't need to ramp up the temperature and bulldoze our story into the person to get them to be okay with our end result behavior. We need to just, wait a minute, take onus, responsibility. It's on me. All right. I did it. Because you know where you see it a lot, Trinity, is in traffic situations, right? It's like, why were you late? Oh, man, traffic. No, you weren't late because of traffic. 99% of the time, you're not late because of traffic. You're late because you timed it so that there has to be a perfect traffic scenario for you to get there on time. You know it and I know it.
Yep.
Yet everybody is okay with saying, oh, man, I'm late because of traffic.
Yeah. Yeah, as if I had no power. And that, to me, is when I hear the whole fair comment. That wasn't fair. Well, it actually was, right? Because you, along with every other person in the world, started out with the ability to not do whatever that behavior was, right? Now, they might have, like you said, they might have been punished differently, but you both had equal ability to say, I'm going to or I'm not going to do this. You both chose to do that. Now, the outcome is what the outcome was. I don't know. Maybe they got punished differently. Who knows? But you had the same ability to say no. You chose to say yes and do whatever that behavior was. And now you got the consequence. And to me, that's where the onus is on us, man. That's where the accountability. And I think that, once again, as I pointed out earlier and you just said again, it's not about being perfect and not making mistakes or bad decisions. It's about owning the ones that you make, right? Yeah, dude, I've made some really bad decisions in my life. It's happened, and I've suffered some consequences from it. Go ahead.
And I want to highlight what you just said. It was a decision. It was a bad one.
It wasn't a mistake.
It wasn't a mistake.
No.
It was a decision.
Yeah.
Trust me, even if it happened in a split hair of a second, your entire committee in your brain utilized all your bit of knowledge that you've ever obtained and all the experience you've ever obtained to make that decision, and it still sucked. So own it.
Your best thinking got you here.
It's only a mistake because you got caught. It's only a mistake because in the end, someone held you accountable for that decision.
Yeah.
But if you would have got away with it, you would have never even noticed it.
Exactly.
It could be called a mistake.
Yeah, it's only a mistake when the situation, the outcome isn't what we hoped it would be. Exactly. Then all of a sudden, magically,
fair?
Can I define fair?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think fair is something that's the ability applied to everybody, right? Because, I mean, first of all, fairness is defined differently for different people, right? Some people's version of fair might not be my version of fair. My idea of fair is are we all able to utilize our abilities the best way we can? Right? Do we all have the same, like I said, like carjacking, for instance, right? I brought it up earlier, but this is to illustrate my point. Is it fair that maybe two different people commit the crime and get two different outcomes? We can argue that. But
you won't give a damn if you get away with it.
Exactly.
You're not marching anywhere.
Exactly.
You get away with it. Trust me. I'm a guy, look, I was facing 20 years of prison, and I got away with it. I am not ever going to say, oh, man, you know what? To be fair, put me in prison. I belong in prison. Hell no. Thank you. I appreciate whatever privilege exists to get me off, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, I am super thankful for all the things that I did not get caught for in my life. And I'm not about to go turn myself in on any of them.
Right.
But to me, the fairness was I had the same decision ahead of time to not do those things. I wasn't forced into any of them. Nobody put a gun to my head and told me do this or that. And Richard said, then as a society, we need to stop blurring the lines between right and wrong. I don't know if we've blurred. I think we all agree on right and wrong. That's why we have laws. I think we disagree on the application of those. I think we apply them nowadays with too much, what we would call empathy, right? I think that hurts us. I do. I think that we've gotten to a situation now where we do have this idea that as long as I have a sad story, as long as I have enough reasoning for it, then that negates my consequences. And the problem is, and sometimes in interpersonal relationships, that might work. That person might give you more leeway because you had a sad story to tell. But life never works that way. Life is going to do what life is going to do. Like I said, gravity is going to work regardless of how you feel about it. That friend of yours might look the other way a bunch of times if you have a sad story, but even then they'll eventually get tired of it. But life itself, like the karmic fruit, if you will, of life, it never cares. It's going to do what it's going to do. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't, but it always works, right?
Right. But we can't ignore the fact that that some people are paying for the sins of their fathers right now, though, man.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Listen, look, we know that right and wrong may be easily defined by some, but it has been historically always misused by whatever person's in power. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care what situation you're in. I don't care what household you're in. There's people out there that might talk about the government's misuse of power, yet in their own home, they're misusing their power. They don't focus on how they're misusing their power and how they're abusing or misusing their power within their neighborhood or within their friend group, but they'll talk about the government's misuse of power. Listen, everyone needs to take responsibility to not misuse power. I don't truly fault the power sources for acting the way they are, because once you're in power, do you ever really want to let it go? Do you really want to let it go? No. Does any championship team go, you know what? We've won 3 championships in a row. I tell you what, let's be fair. I'm going to trade you some of my players and give you some of my players so you can be more competitive against me, and therefore I won't win any more championships. See, when we go to sports, Trinity, we get this. We understand it. Dog eat dog world, man. You want to beat me, beat me. If I can get away with pulling your shirt, and if I can get away with fouling you and not getting called, I'm going to do so. We see it all the time. But then when we get called, we're like, and then we have to slow-mo it. We have to slow-mo it to show people this is what you did, right? Yeah. And that's finally, all right. We don't have slow-mo in life.
No.
We don't have it. So some of you are out there fouling people, and you know you're doing it, but you're denying it. You're yelling it like the refs out there, all the refs
Yeah.
that exist out there. And you go, no, I didn't do it. I do it not. Or I caught the ball. Well, I wish I had slow-mo for everybody. Just show it to them. Look, you did not.
Yeah, you
Look.
clearly didn't.
But I think our real problem is, Trinity, is that we're all getting caught up in motives, right? We're all getting caught up in the motives.
Yep.
And you know, in all my years of counseling, because I've counseled, you know, I had a lot of contracts for the legal system. So I'd cancel a lot of people that were in the legal system, all the way down from you know, the juvenile justice program all the way to the federal system where people come out of federal penitentiaries. And so the whole issue is, listen, when you're in front of a judge, they don't care about anything other than the end result, right? So they don't care, like, you know, where it might matter is the sentencing.
Yeah,
Like,
or if you have a jury.
Or did you really need to kill him? Or, you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is but if you killed someone, you killed somebody. And so you have to first come from that perspective and then build it out from there. But they're still going to be viewing you as the murderer that you are, because you are. But now, if it's justifiable, well, then that's the case that your attorney's going to have to build. You know, that, you know, they're going to look for all that stuff. But I think that all of us now, you know, we're now all focused on the motives rather than the end result. You know, but at the end of the day, I really don't care what your motive is. If you killed my parent,
Exactly.
I don't care what your motive is. I really don't. I got to be honest. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. If my child or anyone in my family ends up dead as a result of you and your behavior at any way, shape, or form, that's the way I'm going to. I don't care.
Well, of course.
That's what I'm focused on.
And that's what I was saying. At like the top of the show is I think that we've got this aura around, you know, the society, if you will, at the moment, that somehow your story negates the consequences. And whatever those consequences are, be it jail time, be it you know, people's anger towards you, be it guilty, or whatever it is. But that's the problem, is it doesn't negate the consequences. No matter how much we want it to, truth is still truth, man. It's still there, reality. Right. And I think that we got to stop promoting that. You know, we have to have a certain amount of self, you know, responsibility, self accountability. And once again, like, I'm not talking about doom and gloom, man, because that's the other thing I see sometimes, and you know it, when people get defensive and you call them out on something, instead of just acknowledging, you know what, yeah, I probably could have, no, then they take it to the other end. Oh, I'm just so wrong. I'm just, no, we're not saying you're a failure because you admit to a mistake or you admit to a bad decision. You're not a failure. Just in that instance, you made a poor decision. That's okay. Right. It happens. What makes it not okay is when you ignore it or you try to explain it away. Because like he said, whoever the victim was in that story doesn't care what your story is. All they care about is, you hurt me. And I need you to validate that and acknowledge the fact that you hurt me. I don't care that you didn't intend to hurt me. Like, I have a wife. I've hurt her in the past many times because I'll just say something. I don't intend for it to hurt. I'm not thinking to myself, ooh, I can't wait to say this to her. Right. No, I'll just say something right off the cuff, not realizing it, and she'll respond, you know, to hurt. And you know, maybe early on when I wasn't as skillful and we were still learning how to be married with one another, I would get frustrated. Like, what do you mean? I didn't do that. I didn't. But at the end of the day, it doesn't. I'm not saying she's not saying I meant to do that. She's just saying it hurt. And so I had to learn how to say, you know what? I'm sorry. You know, that wasn't my intention. I'm sorry it came out that way. Maybe I need to, you know, re-explain it or whatever it is. You know, and I wouldn't try to justify it. I would just say that wasn't my intent, and I'm sorry that's how it was interpreted. My bad. Like I'll come up with something different, right? That's where the communication happens. But you can't just negate the fact that you hurt this person or you did whatever it was that was wrong because you see it differently in your head. Like truth is 360. Go ahead.
You know, one of the things that I've learned, for those of you that don't know, I'm in a very long-term relationship, right? We got married in 1995, right? So you do the math. I don't want to do the math. You know, right? It's 32 years, right? This year it'll be 32 years. But is that what it is? 32 years? No.
Sure.
I don't know how many years married anymore.
I don't even know.
Forever. It's forever. But the point is that when we got, you know, one of the things that I really love is that if Dana looks at me, you know, and says something like I'm doing it to hurt her feelings or whatever, I admit it. I go, yeah, I'm throwing daggers at you right now. I'm shooting arrows at you right now. Is it working? It kind of changes the conversation. It eases the conversation because when you acknowledge that, yes, I am trying to hurt you right now. I'm saying this specific. I said that word specifically.
Right.
That would get you. Then you kind of know how mindless and how dumb the little argument is.
Right.
You notice that you're not even arguing. You notice that you're not arguing about what you're arguing about anymore. You're arguing stuff about 10 years ago and 20 years ago then. And it's like, why are we in this conversation again? I mean, you know that we were talking about like dinner menu, right? And now we're, bringing up something from, 20 years ago. So we as humans, we do that. Like we're constantly doing that. We're constantly using the history, to somehow validate today's argument. And we do it in relationships. We do it in society. We're constantly using history to validate today's behavior. And you can't do that. If we're talking about today, we're talking about today. Now, I get that there's historical reference. And I get that we have all somehow been wronged and we've all been put in situations. However, a lot of times the person we're yelling at to is not the person.
No, they're not the one that did it. No.
Right? I mean, how many husbands and wives out there, or how many boyfriends and girlfriends out there are dealing with someone else's crap that they did to that person?
All of them?
I mean, you're not the one that cheated on them, but you got to deal with the cheater that hurt her. Or you got to deal with the cheater that hurt him in the past. Constantly.
Yep.
It's like, so this is something that everybody should be able to understand and relate to.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we got to stop this idea, man, that I'm completely not liable for anything that I say or do because I have a story or it makes sense in my head. I think that it creates so much resentment and so much disdain for the people around you, man. And not only that, but to be honest with you, it's really liberating. Now walk with me for a minute, man. It's really liberating when you can say, you know what? Yeah, I made a bad decision. Right? Like, because there's times, and I have people in my life that I talk to that I respect, and I'm positive there's times where you and I've been talking, and you'll say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. I was like, oh, I know. I did it on purpose. Like, I will purposely know I'm making a bad decision right now, because I'm letting my emotions, I'm letting my anger, my fear, my resentment, whatever it is, it's in the driver's seat right now, and I know it, and I'm allowing it to happen. I am purposely being unskillful at the moment, right?
Right.
But there's a certain amount of liberation that comes from knowing that and admitting that, right? Like, I'm not going to try to sit here and tell you I'm right. I know I'm wrong. And then what that does is it makes me more self-aware, number one. Number two, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to apologize later on, right? When I can go to my wife and be like, you know what? I was mad. I said some things I probably shouldn't have said, and I apologize for that. It makes it so much easier when I can admit that, you know what? That was a bad idea. So it's contrary, right? We think that it makes us less than, or we think that it's like a sign of weakness to admit you're wrong. No, it's actually, it's not only a sign of strength, it's liberating, because like you could just be like, you know what? Yeah, I messed that one up and I'm sorry.
Freedom.
Yeah. I was trying to tiptoe around that one.
No, I got one for you. Okay? Because we are all historically wrong a lot, right? I mean, all of us have been wrong a lot. Think about it. Think about the history of wrongness that you have. How many? I mean, for those of you that have dated 1,000 people, that's 1,000 wrongs you did. Like you weren't right like 1,000 times, right? But now I got one for you. So you will use this in your next marital relationship argument.
I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any.
Right. No. You'll use it. So when your loved one is looking at you like you're wrong, and you're like, that I have a better history of being right, at least most recently. Like, what are you talking about? Because I picked you. See, you picked me. So I am more right than you because I picked you. So if I'm so bad, you're the one that is historically wrong. Look what you did to yourself. Whereas my picker is right because I picked you.
Exactly. So, I like that one actually. I might steal that one actually.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's a good one to steal. You can have it.
But it is liberating, though, right? Because it also reinforces the idea that we both talk about, and that is that you're in control. You are, right? You are in control of you. As much as we like to pretend that we're not, or we like to shove it off on other people and other events, that's all just BS. At the end of the day, we are in control of how we choose to respond to something, right? And that is still, to this day, my favorite thing that I learned when I walked my spiritual journey. The third truth was you don't have to suffer. Like, you don't have to respond to these things. We all have seen that. We all have seen people respond to a situation in their life that we're like in awe of, right? We've seen people respond to something. We're like, whoa, like, I don't know if I could. Yeah, you could, right? You don't have to fall into this normal pattern that you've been told is the right way. You can choose a different way. And sometimes that choice is, you know what, I'm going to handle things better, right? And it doesn't make me a punk. It doesn't make me weak. It makes me, in charge of myself. I'm not giving that power to anybody else, right? But
Right.
the first thing you have to do is admit, like we said earlier, you chose that. It didn't happen to you. It didn't happen, because of them. No, you chose it. Because there's many people who go there. What was that story that I don't think it's not an exact story. It's just a fable, I guess, where somebody goes up to two twins and asks this person, why they used drugs and alcohol, and they said, well, because my parents were. And then you go to the other twin and say, why didn't you use drugs and alcohol? Well, because my parents were. So the exact same situation they were both in, they chose to handle it differently, right? And so that's what I try to have my kids, for instance, whenever they do something from an early age. Whenever they do something, like my son, for whatever reason, has this idea that he's an equal to the teachers. Because the teacher will say something or whatever it is, and he'll get upset that she said something, and I keep trying to drill in his head. It's like, it doesn't matter. She's the authority figure in that room. So she can tell you what to do, and she can even be wrong. She can be yelled. She can do all those things. She has the authority. You, at 10, do not have the place to stand up and do that. That's where I come in, right? If it's unjust, you tell me, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But you can't sit there and acting like she's an equal to you and flipping out and doing all sorts of things, because at the end of the day, you're always going to be wrong because you have the student code of conduct. Now, granted, if something crazy happens, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the basic things in life. And and I think that's what we got to help people understand, because if we don't talk to our kids about it, then they grow up to be adults who don't do it either. And we all know those. Go into any freaking jail right now. They're all just sitting in there, and they're all going to justify you why they shouldn't be in there, even though they'll even admit to what they did was wrong. That's the craziest part, is I've seen people admit what they did was wrong, but still don't think that there should be some sort of a consequence, even though they will knowingly admit that what they did wrong. And the reason why is because they're thinking of the story. They're thinking of the story, and it magically justifies whatever behavior that they did that they shouldn't have a consequence, which then makes them continue to repeat that behavior in all aspects of life. Because don't get it twisted. If you do that in one area, you're probably doing it in many areas of your life. And that's where the idea is you're creating your own. Have you ever heard that phrase, you can't get out of your own way? That's what that is. You're creating so much more drama and so much more BS in your life by not just getting with the program and accepting the fact you're going to be wrong sometimes, bro. It's okay. Be wrong. Own it. Stop expecting the world to adhere to you, because that's not how it works. We're not going to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and there's not just one answer. And there's not just one solution. And you've seen me stump people before, Trent. So I'm going to remind you where you see me stump people with this solution thing. Somebody comes to us, and, when we're talking about some of these problems, and they'll be like, well, I just think, if we could hit, if our parents could punish us and they could hit us again, and I'll be like, yeah, because nobody in prison ever got hit by their parents.
Yep.
That's all I have to say. When people start thinking that all the bad behavior out there is because people aren't getting spanked, I go, yeah, because nobody in prison ever got spanked. They all they stop there for a second.
Well, they have to.
Or when they start saying, "Oh no, I didn't do this because my mom wouldn't let me because if I would have got high, if I would have drank, then my parents would have," and I'd be like, "Yeah," because you're thinking, really? No, it's your decision that you made.
Yep.
Look, if you don't have that issue, it's because you made a decision, or you don't have that genetic predisposition, or there's other factors that exist. So we love to go like this and think we know why we're steering in the right direction on certain points, right? Because with all of our failures, we also have a lot of successes. So sometimes the same way we don't seem to understand truly how we got into our failures, guess what? You may not truly understand how you got your successes either. You might be giving credit to the wrong item.
Yeah.
All of the things are relevant. Everything is irrelevant. And we see it a lot. Like marijuana is a good one to discuss when we talk about this.
Oh boy.
Because we just want to ignore that ever has any reasoning to do with any negative behavior, right? So you could be getting up with the law, you could be failing, you could be, but it's not pot, right? So I'm using pot because that can give you an understanding, at least, because we've all heard it, right? Now I get it. There are individuals that smoke pot that don't have those consequences. Get it, but that may not be you. There are individuals that come from broken homes. and they don't behave like you do, but you might. You know, so we have to understand that all these things might make sense to you, and you use them as reasoning. But not everybody from a broken home, not everybody that smokes pot, not everybody that is raised by a grandparent instead of their parents. Both parents are in prison. That doesn't mean anything other than it's a factor. But there's a lot of factors, including this factor. You had the ability to listen to this program, sit back and reflect, or you had the ability to listen and watch this program and justify still and say, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. It makes sense to them, but look at them and look where they're at. It's easy for them to talk about, but you know what? You don't know where I've come from. You don't know where I've been. You don't know what I've experienced. No, I don't. But you don't know what I've been. You don't know what I've experienced. You don't know what I've felt. Yep. And so that is, but I don't want to know your whole story unless we're actually going to become friends and I actually ask you the question. Yeah. Until then, I just don't want you robbing my house. I just don't want you
exactly
raping my daughters. I just don't want you coming up and just punching me for no frickin' reason. You stay over there, I'll stay over here. If we interact, we interact. But you know what? I have the same rules as you do, because here's what you don't get. That I might come into your house. I might come rob you. And I might have my own story of why I did what I did. And let me tell you something. When you're on the victim side of it, you don't give a damn either. So when you're on the person that did it side, just understand that. You are not the victim here. And I think victimness or victimhood is learned victimness that we're teaching everybody. Yeah. I think it's part of the problem we talk about. You know, you're saying justification and validation and all these things. I think if I look to how am I the victim in my own situation, of course I can find stuff. You know, there's
of course we all can.
To me that I know are significant. Those are factors, but there are no singular factors that drive the bus. None. There are no, and the proof of that is there's somebody out here in this world with that factor that you just mentioned, and they're not in your same exact situation.
Exactly.
Which proves multiple factors matter. So what our job to do as humans is to continue to stack the decks in our favor. Don't continue to stack the deck against your favor. Stack the deck in your favor. You try to hang out with people that are moving in a certain direction, like salmon fish, right? Because if you get in a whole cluster of people moving in a positive direction, you just may make it upstream. And it is upstream. I get it. The water's going against you. It's pushing you down. It's not. You're just not intended to be swimming upstream. No fish is intended to swim upstream. Yet salmon do it.
Yeah.
Even though there's a bear up there saying, "Thank you very much for doing
Bring it, baby.
After all that hard work, I'm going to eat you." So you may not even make it. Even if you beat all the odds, you still may not make it. However, you still do it. Running a pack of those going against the stream. Don't go with the stream. Run against it. And so many of us are just like moo animals, man. We're just moo cows. We're just getting that herd of negativity. Yeah, we just get in the herd of negativity, and because this one, validates our behavior, and this one agrees with what I just did, even though I keep on landing in negative situations, I'll just, see, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. We're victims. Okay. You sit in that pasture right there.
Exactly.
Go nowhere.
All right, so we have some comments that have been piling up, so let me get through those pretty quickly. Richard said early on, he said, so does your carjacker deserve more grace for a rough upbringing than someone that doesn't? No, I think we've established that one.
But let me say something to that. Here's where it matters. It doesn't matter to the initial consequence. The initial consequence is the initial consequence. But what it will do is once I am resolved of that initial emotion that I got from you carjacking me, it may permit me to forgive you sooner.
Yeah.
So it'll matter later, but don't tell it to me right when you jack me. Because I don't give a shit then.
Yeah.
Give me some time, and then it may matter.
And then Marissa said that's how some people justified it when seeing the looting and the violence, which I agree. That was the way they justified obvious criminal behavior back with the riots and stuff like that. They're angry and they're upset. Well, sure, and you have every right to feel whatever emotion you want to feel, but that right stops at the moment you start vandalizing things that aren't yours and breaking laws. Next one.
Every time I got suspended from my elementary school, by the way, Peebles Elementary in McLean, Texas, East Texas. I would go. God, my mom's gonna get mad. I would go to the school and I would take my BB gun and I would shoot holes in their window, and I felt justified for shooting holes in their windows.
Yeah. How dare they hold you accountable?
Until I was made to go to a Catholic school. I lasted 6 weeks there. I busted their window with a rock. So every time I would vandalize the school, I felt justified because the teachers, the principals, and all the school staff were so mean to me.
If they would just let you carry on, they'd be fine.
That's why they did it.
Next one, Marissa said, I think if people actually acknowledged what's really going on with them, the people around them would be there and try to help if possible, but lashing out and using them as a bumper creates a disconnect. It's hard to be mad at somebody whose story you know. And that to me is where the story matters, right? If I'm trying to evoke empathy and I'm trying to build a connection, that's where my story matters, right? My story does not matter when it comes to being held accountable and the consequences of my behavior. And I think that's where we got to understand the difference here, man. Right. Next one is Richard said, I don't know what JMO means. He said, JMO, but you are talking around the problem. I believe everything that you are talking about comes down to a moral standard of accountability that we don't teach or live by anymore. I would agree. I think that's kind of what we're talking about, man, is we're great at accountability when it comes to like whoever hurt us. But we're horrible at accountability when it comes to people we like and ourselves, right?
And I do want to add, we don't need another Spanish Inquisition. We tried that. That didn't really work.
No, that's a bad idea.
So we don't want that. We just need to accept people for whatever morality they choose to live in their life, in their world. Because everybody comes to morality differently, right? Some use certain books, some use certain literature, some use religion. It's whatever it is. But when you start crossing boundaries to hurt somebody else, you break those primary rules.
Right.
Look, I'm no longer a practicing Catholic, yet you look at those 10 Commandments, they just make sense.
Sure.
Philosophically, even. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Thou shalt not kill. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty standard thing there.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. That's probably a good decision.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. What was the last one he was saying? Accountability. One of my favorite like phrases or sayings back in the day was, "We're typically a judge for everybody else, but a lawyer for ourselves." Right. So when somebody else does something, we're immediately ready to judge, good, bad, whatever. When it comes to ourselves, now all of a sudden we put our lawyer hat on. We'll see what happened was I did this. And I think we got to kind of get out of that one. Lori said, "Amen, brother." And then Gabriella said, "Man, this is so much truth. I believe all this and also have been guilty of this. We all have. But what a great topic to bring to light, especially in raising these kids. Couldn't agree more." Marissa, let me know what JMO means. It's just my opinion. Thank you for that. And then Richard said, "Forgive him, he's old." We're the same age, brother.
By the way, Trinity, I didn't know what it was either.
I'd never seen it. But no, I think that's accountability is what it is, man. I think that's, gosh, man, we're so lenient on accountability, and we got to stop looking at accountability as a bad thing. We got to stop looking at it as harsh, because it's not, man. Go ahead.
But we're not with our kids. We're not with our kids. Typically, you know what I mean. So you mothers out there and you fathers out there, just understand. Like when they're violating your space, how accepting are you of that behavior? Because I've seen some of you just completely destroy your children. Right? I've seen you in the supermarket. I've seen you in the stores. I've seen you somewhere. So if you're not going to accept it from them, then what about you? What about you? What do you think? Because I'm grown? Because you're grown? No, man. You're still a child. We're all children. I don't look. First of all, the older I get, the more childlike I am. Now I'm an older man.
You wet yourself now? They make diapers for that,
almost,
bro. Depends.
I almost did. I almost did. But no, I'm a child though now. In other words, like I'm 52 years old. I'm no, you know what I mean? So it's like we do revert back to childhood, where it's like I don't really care anymore. So there was a peaking moment around 30s and 40s. Those were some peaking times where you felt the most adult, but then you turn into a child again. And so that is just the way it is.
You actually touched on something really important right there, actually, because it's something I don't think a lot of people think about. Our kids watch way more than they listen, right? Meaning you could tell your kids all you want, but what they're really paying attention to is what you're doing, right? And so I think one of the most important ones, if you're trying to correct this in your own life, and then you're also trying to raise your children with that, the biggest thing you could do is have that same kind of accountability with your kids. And I think most people heard that and they immediately thought about raising kids. No. What I'm talking about is I've apologized to my kids before, right? That's a big deal. A lot of parents hear that and like, what? No. They're not exempt. Sometimes I can be an asshole, man. Sometimes I can be short-sighted. Sometimes I can be emotional. Sometimes I can be, dismissive or whatever it might be. And that's where the accountability comes into play, is I practice what I preach. So if one of my kids, because I've had situations where one of my kids will say or do something, and then I'll like bring the hammer down on them, or I'll do whatever the consequence was. It's probably a little bit more than it needed to be. I will 99% of the time. I won't say always, because I'm sure I'm not perfect, but I will make an effort to go seek them out, sit down with them and say, you know what, I'm sorry.
Amen.
I handled that one wrong earlier, and you didn't deserve that. And this is why I did that. It hurt my feelings, and I respond. I will be vulnerable with my children, which helps our connection, but it also teaches them, hey, you know what? It's okay to apologize when you hurt somebody. Like, that is a big deal, man. I know a lot of parents out there who think apologizing to your kids is beneath you, and it's not. Go ahead.
Right. And a big thing, and I know you do it as well, is we allow our...
Uh-oh. You just lost your audio. You just lost all audio. Everything. You can leave and come back from your thing. I'll have it up. No, go ahead. You can leave and come back. You can rejoin us. We were just having this discussion earlier about how we were not fond of some of the technical limitations of what we're working with here. So he'll come back in a second, finish his thought, and then we'll probably do the wrap ups and stuff. But oh, here he is. There we go. All right, I think we can hear you now. Oh no, hold on. There we go. Now we can hear you. Oh,
all right.
Wow, it's really lagging now.
I told you that the phone was going to ring, right?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Is that we allow our kids to be wrong sometimes, and then I'll have to go after this because I got 3%. We allow our kids to be wrong. No, but instead of hanging back, says, "All right, I'm going to let you be wrong," and say it, and throwing it in their face and say, "Yeah," and then when it's bad, I'm not going to be here to rescue. No. I will always be here to help you. About rescue you, but I'll be here to support you. So I'm going to allow you to be wrong, but I'm not going to tell you that, and I will be here to support you, and I will tell you that. That is the key. The key is to how you allow someone around you to be wrong without you having to say, "I told you so," without you having to be on top of them, yet say it in a way that is still supportive. I think that's also a key. If we're going to help people kind of take more responsibility on how to behave and take ownership, then as a supporting cast, you got to be a little bit more patient on letting somebody get through that process. You know what I mean? And sometimes that means you can't say "I told you so" in a way that's hurtful and demeaning, because then they're never going to come to you. And you just got to be able to help them pick themselves back up, because we all get scraped. We all have cuts and bruises. None of us are perfect in that. And with that, Trinity, yeah, I'm at 3%. So
that was your wrap up.
Wrapping up because. Yeah. That's it. That was it.
I'll do my wrap up. Well, first and foremost, thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, if you want to follow us on social media, he is at the Dope Doctor. I am at the Dharma Guy, which we're actually both on TikTok now. So we both threw in the towel and we joined. You can also check out.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Dude, did you unmute me for a second?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Trinity, you got to go see that TikTok I placed of my future son-in-law. In 1 week, my daughter's getting married. My daughter's
I'll check it out.
Married. You got to see that, because I've seen that video for the last 6 years or 4 or 5 years. I don't know, however many years. I laugh hysterically every time I watch.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll check it out as soon as we get out of here. Yeah. But yeah, and if you're listening to this and you want to watch some of the videos after the fact, you can go to youtube.com/Dharma Time. And you can check us out on podcasts, things of that nature. And we do appreciate the views, the shares, the likes, all that stuff. It does help. And if you want to watch the shows live, Dharma Time is live on Tuesdays, usually at 1 o'clock. And that's facebook.com/WPSN99. Or you can just look up Dope and Dharma. And let me mute him. You can look up Dope and Dharma and you'll find us. However, it makes you jump through hoops for whatever reason. I think it's because his name is Dope, but regardless. He's the culprit. So anyways, so to talk about, my wrap-ups on here, yeah, I think I'm only going to do two sides of it, right? On one side, if you're the giver of the accountability, it would behoove you to do it with a softer approach. think in your mind that I genuinely care about this human being. I want to be kind to them. I want to love them, and I want to show them compassion. The reason why I'm trying to point out their behavior is out of love, not out of spite, not out of malice. And so if you approach that with a loving mindset, then your message is more likely to land on ears that are going to hear them as opposed to on ears that are going to get defensive. So the onus is on you to get out of your own ego and be able to help somebody, with an open hand as opposed to a closed fist. But on the flip side of that, if you're the person who needs the accountability, understand that we make decisions every day and choices every single day, and sometimes those choices are going to work out and sometimes they're not. Understand that when they don't work out, it's okay, but what's not okay is to ignore that and act like it doesn't matter. The consequences do matter. Yes, your story matters to those who it matters to, but you got to understand the world at large doesn't care about your story. They're looking at the outcome. That's what's important to them. And if the outcome is something that's going to hurt others, your story does not negate the consequence for that. So try to be teachable. Try to be into a moment in your head where you're willing to accept the loving statements from those around you and realize I can do better. Because at the end of the day, we can all do better. Right? And that's what I say at the end of the show, which, speaking of which, we're there. So, now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.